But anyway, let me start by introducing Sarah Kean, one of our positive behaviour support leads at Avenues.
Hello everybody, this is Carroll, Head of Learning Development for Avenues.
Okay, so our presentation is to share with you a workforce training project that was a result of Avenues obtaining some funding from Health Education Kent, Surrey and Sussex. I'll start by giving you a brief introduction to Avenues, and then we'll go on to talk about how we used and are still using the funding in regards to our workforce development, in particular areas of mindfulness and PBS, and how this is also supporting the Transforming Care initiative. To help us to describe that to you, we will share with you two case studies. So let me tell you a little bit about Avenues. We're a social care organisation, and next year we'll be celebrating our 25th anniversary. Okay. We operate across the south east of England, in Kent, Surrey, Sussex, as well as a number of London boroughs. We also provide services in Norfolk and Suffolk, and a bit out on the limb, Shropshire. And how that, yeah, exactly, we laughed at the time. How that came about is we were supporting somebody who lived in Norfolk. It was his desire and his family's desire for him to move back home to Shropshire. So we arranged that transition move, and one of our staff decided they wanted to move as well. So they moved with him and continued and maintained that support, which was fantastic for the individual. And as a result of that, for the organisation's benefit, is that we've started growing and developing more work in Shropshire because of that support that we've given. Our strengths lie in the support we provide for people with complex and challenging needs and behaviours in their own home, in small residential services, or as community outreach. And we employ about 1,800 people and support about 1,000 people. We share similar values to many other social care providers, which is supported by our vision, mission and values statements. Community engagement is particularly important to us, and it was really encouraging to hear Kim Manley speak this morning about how people learn, how as a result of that learning they do something differently, and why practice development is so important. That is very dear in the hearts and minds of everything we do at Avenues. So, what has the funding allowed us to do? Our focus was to look at how we developed our autism, PBS and active support training, as well as introducing mindfulness to our employees and family groups. So let me start by sharing our Mindfulness Project with you. If we start with some definitions that relate to mindfulness, I'll just give you a moment to read those. Our goals were to look at how we can support our staff teams that on a daily basis are often working in challenging and stressful environments. Introducing mindfulness was an initiative fully supported by our executive management team and our trustees as a way of supporting employee wellbeing. In fact, our executive management team and some of our trustees were the first group to go through mindfulness training. So how do we do that? We partnered with the Tizard Centre, University of Kent, and developed a mindfulness training programme. The Tizard Centre helped us to run our initial programmes, which we then undertook to run ourselves. In doing this, we funded 2 internal trainers to undertake studies at the Centre of Mindfulness Practice and Research at Bangor University. We then adapted the original course, and we then went on to run and develop our own 6-week programme. So anybody that goes through the programme, it's 6 concurrent weeks of 2 hours mindfulness training. To date, we have now run over 25 programmes with an average of 6 delegates per programme. We've also run a programme for a group of 6 parents who had at least one child with a learning disability and or autism who displayed challenging behaviour. We originally hoped to run the programme for up to 12 parents, but there were a number of restrictions in terms of them getting support for their children while they came and attended the programme. But we are planning some future programmes. As a result of that programme with the parents, we do know that they have now set themselves up as an informal network group. In looking at the effectiveness of the programme, it was important that we introduce some measures. So each delegate was asked to complete a depression, anxiety and stress questionnaire at the start of the programme, and then again 6 weeks later at the end of the programme. The questionnaire itself was developed by the University of New South Wales in 2 formats, a long format in which delegates responded to 42 statements, and a short format where the delegates responded to 21 statements. We used the short-term questionnaire. The question rates their responses to depression, anxiety and stress against the severity, ranging from normal to extremely severe. And these are the summary of the results. Taking a mean score from across the group, we found that DAS rating had reduced in all 3 areas by the end of the programme, which we saw as something very positive. We also invited and collected qualitative feedback, some of which can be seen here. So again, I'll just give you a moment to read through some of those statements. A couple of the comments I particularly liked from the staff was as to how mindfulness impacted on their life outside of work, but also feedback relates to employees reviewing their own care practice. And it was really nice to hear that there was a balance of the two. Some feedback from the group of parents. So some really positive statements coming from the parent groups that we helped support through the programme. Yeah.
During the parent programmes, we were also able to run with the same parents a set of workshops around PBS and active support as well. So they kind of got that information that they hadn't been getting around the understanding behind their child's behaviour as well. So that was really, really positive for them. Good feedback from that as well.
Thanks, Sarah. One thing that we had to acknowledge with the mindfulness programme, that mindfulness isn't for everybody. Okay? And in running the programme, we gave individuals the opportunity to opt out. We also introduced mindfulness to our office-based staff, and we now run regular pop-in sessions at lunchtimes, which are proving to be very successful and very beneficial to individuals. The next evaluation exercise that we want to look at in terms of mindfulness is looking at the services where mindfulness training occurred 9 to 12 months ago and look at how it correlates with sickness and absenteeism records within those services, as well as the link with accident and incident reporting to see if we're seeing a reduction because staff are recognising that quicker and are behaving differently as a result of it. Sorry. away from the back to hold the microphone higher. Just keep the paper away from your mouth. Okay. Before we share a case study with you in relation to PBS and transforming care, a couple of other things that the funding has enabled us to do is to review our autism training that we deliver within Avenues. And we've recently, one of our trainers is completing the National Autistic Society Framework training known as SPELL, okay, for understanding and responding to the needs of children and adults on the autism spectrum. Okay. It focuses on 5 principles that have been identified as vital elements in best practice of autism, and emphasises ways to change the environment and our approach to meet the specific needs of each person, those being structure, positivity, empathy and low arousal links. We have also reviewed and further developed our active support training, and there is a direct link between active support and how this underpins positive behaviour support, as well as introducing the award in education and training, a first level teaching qualification, to our PBS training team. I'm now going to hand over to Sarah, who will share with you a case study involving Kim. So,
not her real name, just so you know.
You've got to hold that, Sarah, I believe.
Okay. We're going to be passing this to forward and backwards now, aren't we?
We are.
Catch. Okay, so I first got to know about Kim when she was referred to Avenues by a local authority who wanted to get her back into the area where her family were. She'd been in a hospital setting for 3 years, and they felt that she was ready to move out and be supported in the community.
Okay. What information was given to you about Kim when Avenues first approached you to support her?
So I'm positive behaviour support lead, right? So I get told all the bad stuff, yeah? Firstly, she's self-injurious, and then she's assaulting staff, and she's isolating herself, but not really because all the doors are locked, and she's being restrained, and she's not going out, but she's ready to be supported in the community. Okay, so I went along and found some more information about Kim's got mild learning disabilities, she's got autism, dyspraxia, generalised anxiety disorder. She has a number of challenging behaviours, which in the past had led to a number of placements being broken down. The last crisis Kim had was out in the community, in the middle of a shopping centre. It involved a lot of members of the public, a child, police, and it was quite horrific for her to go through. And like I said, that ended up with her stay in hospital for 3 years. Speaking with the staff on the unit, we were told anecdotally, because we didn't have access to any incident records or anything, that Kim would become self-injurious to the point that ambulances were called, where she'd hurt her head so badly that she'd have open wounds. Restraint would be used, consisting of between 2 and 5 people. No rhyme nor reason. So she was held on the floor quite a lot of the time. This was happening on a regular basis, daily, and usually ended up with PRM medication being used as a result as well. But when you broke down the incidents and you spoke to Kim and her support staff a little bit further, it was a real cyclical thing that was going on. So Kim would ask to go out, and she was only one-to-one in the community at this time, so she'd asked to go out. And she was told there was no staff to take her out. So she'd start self-injury. So they'd start restraining her. Then she'd start hitting out. Then more staff would arrive to restrain her more firmly, and then she'd be medicated. And actually what staff were saying to me, when they were able to take Kim out, it never escalated. So we went from one-to-one in the community, but there wasn't enough staff to that, but there was 5 members of staff to hold her down. If only they'd just done what she asked in the first place. It kind of takes us back to some of the things we've heard today. People want choice and they want control over what happens in their environment. So that was the first things I started to build a picture up about Kim.
What was your first impression of her when you first met Kim?
She wanted to go out. She made a beeline for me and said, "Are you my new support staff? Are you going to take me to my new home?" So I explained who I was, and I said we'll have to work a long time, and she was bright and she was bubbly and she was full of energy, and this energy could look like challenging behaviour. Bear hugs are a thing, right? They're not always aggressive, sometimes they're really, really friendly, but some people don't like it and they misinterpret these things. So I was told by some of the staff that Kim had some Macaton signs, but they didn't encourage her to use it because she can talk. She's totally verbal. But actually, when her anxieties are up here, I could see she wasn't able to verbalise to me. So meeting Kim was so important, just that first initial meeting. And I started signing the few signs that I know, don't ask me, because it's, yeah, you have to practice these things. And she responded really well and calmed down. So it's like, okay, so we're starting to build a picture up of actually this really friendly girl that just needs supporting in a different way.
Okay. So when you were developing the transition plan, what were some of your key priorities and challenges?
All my notes written down, I don't think I've looked at my paper one. Okay, so it's really important for Kim to have enough time to meet her staff and get to know them, go out, and build rapport with her new staff. She made me tell her, we kind of plucked a couple of members of staff out the first day I met her because we kind of didn't have an idea of who those staff would be, but she really, really wanted to know what they looked like, what they liked doing. So it was obvious that it was really important to her to get the right person. So, yeah, we involved her in that. The timeline, she wanted a date. When am I moving? You know, how many sleeps? Show me on the calendar. So it was really important that we were very careful about how that was planned out with her so that we didn't break any promises, because things had broken down so much for her in the past. And there were not obviously to you, but there were some restrictions that were going to be needing to be in place in her new home. So we needed to make her aware of those. And she can understand, but obviously fluctuating anxieties means that at some certain times she may lack the capacity to kind of make safe decisions. So we had to also consider deprivation of liberty, court protection issues around that. We had to make sure that all the staff had the right training, and we couldn't wait for them to be booked on the training calendar that we create once a year, because you know, there's months in between each session of de-escalation, diffusion and breakaway techniques and stuff like that. And her staff needed to be ready to make it work for her. So we put a package of training together that was solely for Kim around de-escalation, diffusion, breakaway, person-centred active support. Kim actually attended the Macaton training with her staff. So we had all of that set up during the transition period. And some of the challenges, usually the challenge we face is property, but we were really lucky because Kim was known to the local authority really well, and they knew that it was really important to get things right, and they happened to find a property that they owned, and kind of developed that service with us. So we worked really well with the local authority in collaboration. They had agreed, so I spoke to them about some of the adaptations that needed to be done in the property. We went and viewed the property with Kim. You know, like glass doors got to go, because you know what you like. What sofa do you want there? Do you want a corner one? And we just, all together, just developed this service. So yeah.
Okay, were there any other adaptations that you had to make to the property?
So, any glass doors, because when Kim gets anxious, she slams things. Radiator covers needed to be kind of smoothed down and things like that, because obviously the issue with the self-injury. Any pull cords needed to be changed to switches, just in case. So they're quite severe challenges that Kim has had in the past. And we didn't want to stop her going out, because the whole thing is she wants to go out, take her out, okay? But actually, if she decided to go out and forget to tell her staff, we kind of needed to know that, because she was under court protection for having one-to-one supervision. So we aimed to put a keypad on the external door with a sensor so that staff knew she was leaving, so staff could just go and be with her. But yeah, that didn't happen because she just learnt to use a key. And the sound of the key clunks, so the staff hear her and she leaves, so it's even more socially valid for her really now. But yes.
Okay. I also understand, Sarah, that we were asked to provide Kim with an electronic tagging device.
Yeah. So there was a risk of absconding for Kim. So even though she had one-to-one supervision, the local authority were very nervous about her because of the last time she was in crisis. Obviously it was out in public. So they decided to introduce a GPS watch. This caused Kim quite a lot of concern because she was anxious about, why do I need to wear this if I've got staff with me? Does this mean I can go out on my own? So actually, there was more risk of her absconding with the watch on. So I was kind of making all these suggestions that maybe we should just hold off and see what happens, take a bit of time. And then the watch wasn't ready. So her moving date came and we said, she needs to go and move because her moving date's here, the watch isn't ready, we don't want the watch. So she moved without the watch. 3 months later, they were still going on about the watch. She hasn't had an incident for 3 months later. Yeah. She didn't have a watch. She hasn't had an incident. Should we just not do the watch? And but they are still talking about the watch a year later. Yeah. But they're talking about it differently. They're talking about it in ways where actually maybe Kim can have the watch and go out on her own on the public transport that she uses every day with her staff, and we can just make sure she's safe digitally. So we're actually looking at ways of using that to give her much more independence.
And how did you get involved, Kim and her mum, in terms of the staffing?
Well, so a lot of the staff originally, for her original transition, were Avenue staff anyway, and we would kind of cherry-picked and sent them to go and meet her, and she's quite capable of saying if she doesn't like anyone. So that it was kind of a meet and greet, build rapport, is it working, is it not working out? Mum would talk about the cultural needs because Kim's parents, they're both from different cultures, so she wanted the staff to have an understanding of that. So Kim's mum was kind of just sharing ideas about the knowledge that the staff wanted. She didn't really get involved in actually choosing the staff in that sense.
Cool. You touched on earlier, Sarah, about some of the training that the staff needed. Certainly there's the issues about the statutory and regulatory, but it was really important then that the training met the needs of supporting Kim. So we changed our approach where we would run an annual training calendar for staff, but we actually put a package of training together for the staff team that we knew that was going to be supporting Kim. And that really did make a difference, that they were ready to move with her when she moved into a house. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time we've done that approach, and it really has made a difference. Mm-hmm. And we're now copying that model as we're going forward, certainly in transforming care projects that we're involved in. So last question for me, Sarah, about Kim. What's Kim's life like now?
Well, up to about a week ago, she didn't have any incidents for a whole year. And I was planning this, and then I got a phone call, Sarah, you'll never guess what I was like, oh, really? But we learn, because Kim's got a lot of changes in her life at the moment, her family, there's changes within her family, new babies and things, so it's, you know, she's had a lot of things that are building her anxieties. So it's things that we weren't aware would cause her anxieties. But it was all managed well, and she didn't go to hospital. She's in her own home. But like I said, she has had no incidences. When she was at the hospital, she did have day release to a day centre college 1 day a week. Now she's attending 3 days a week, 5 days in school holidays. She's been on holiday to Paris, to Blackpool, to Brighton. She's been away with her family to Ireland. She's planning another trip to Ireland in the next couple of months. She goes out when she wants. She's got a bike and a park behind her house that she just, the staff love running after her, right? But there's no real restrictions on her, really. You know, she created her own. She had a locked kitchen where she was before. Now she's got the freedom to cook what she wants. Chooses not to because she likes the staff's cooking, but she is involved in some way in every part of her life. So she's an amazing story. And yeah, like I say, we're trying to copy the model that we used with Kim through everybody else that we've transitioned out of 52-week schools and hospitals.
Yeah.
So,
great,
yeah.
thanks, Sarah. In summary, I just want to go back to the funding that we managed to obtain. The funding has enabled us to provide extra training and to provide extra support for our staff teams. It's provided them with the new knowledge and the skills and also allowed them to become more empowered in their job roles. It has reinforced the importance of PBS within Avenues, which has helped us to support more people to move out of their own homes in the same way that we did with Kim. It's also helped us and is helping us in our involvement in supporting the Transforming Care initiative. Okay? I would recommend to anybody, if you get the opportunity to apply for funding in the future, go for it. It really does help. All of that's fantastic news, but for some individuals, it's frustrating when we've had, over the past 18 months, had to turn away 40 people who will be leaving hospital or 52-week schools due to budget, resourcing and property restraints. But our approach to PBS and what the funding has enabled us to do has meant that over the past 18 months we have been able to support 8 people who were in 52-week schools or hospitals to move out of their own homes. We are currently developing a service for 13 other people to move out of their treatment and assessment centres, and we have 8 active referrals for people similar to Kim, which we hope we will be able to support soon. Thank you very much indeed, and I guess we do need to open up for any questions, so over to you.
I just 2 questions actually. The easy one, a quick one. Sorry, I didn't catch what was the funding stream that you accessed?
It was through, in fact, Rona, who's sitting there now.
Health Education England, working across Kent, Surrey, Sussex, Intellectual Disability Programme.
And it's funding that we could use over a 3-year period.
Again, commissioning teams are using this to help it.
It's not the commissioning model really. Avenues approached us with what we thought was a really good project, and we spoke with them and then agreed to fund it in return for certain things, including project updates and reports, that kind of thing.
And backhanders.
As a result of the project, once there is a final evaluation, which Avenues will produce for us, that will be freely available as well and will be in an easy read version. We're also trying to break down the silo working, and places like Avenues are doing such good work that we really want everybody to know about it and to know about some of the barriers they face, some of the lessons learned, some of the things that might not have worked as well, which
Absolutely.
is important with learning about things that do work. So it's not just about our local region, it's about making it available nationally for everyone.
And my one, if that's all right. Just quickly, on that kind of point really, in terms of kind of silo working and some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier and looking at kind of context, I was just wondering if you had any data, whether it was anecdotal or not actually, about the impact of, Because there's something about supporting staff with the skills around mindfulness and all that kind of stuff, you know, pulling them out of their environment, doing the mindfulness training, giving them some skill tools to cope with some of what they experience a little bit better. But there's also some of the research on it's also clear as well, if you don't do anything around the environment, actually there's a latent kind of effect in terms of that suppressive. So I just wondered if you'd had any experience of kind of the importance of the manager, the middle manager and the senior managers. I know you said your executive was trying to
Yes.
this, but in terms, you know yourself, one of the massive variables in terms of staff experience is their manager and how they get on with their manager. I just wondered if there's anything in terms of, do you notice the difference when there's been a manager trained in mindfulness and the staff versus just the staff and not the manager?
The management groups went through mindfulness first because it was important that they understood the messages that they could share with their staff.
Yeah.
Okay? So
I get that. I was just wondering if you noticed any difference with managers that have and haven't been trained in terms of staff experience?
We have in terms of anecdotal information, yes. And we have also, because we linked it with, at the same time, running a coaching program for managers.
Yeah.
So their style in management was changing. And then the feedback they were getting then from their staff teams was that they were beginning to see a different person in the way that they were being managed and helping them in terms of the pressures that they were facing as staff teams because of the manager's understanding of mindfulness and how that could help. So then we then started rolling out to the staff teams within those same services. What we didn't do was put the manager through the same program as their staff team, purely because of the personal nature of some of the discussion that happens during the mindfulness sessions. It could cause an element of compromise between the manager and their staff team, where a manager might be opening up to some of their feelings and emotions that they wouldn't necessarily want to in front of their staff teams.
So the answer is yes, is it?
Yes. So that was a politician's answer. And yes, the answer is yes.
We've got about 2 more minutes, so has anybody got any more questions? Sorry, Paddy.
Sorry, a couple more questions about mindfulness stuff. I'm very much interested in that and sort of the research around it. In terms of sort of the uptake, I think you said earlier, Shane, I completely agree, mindfulness isn't necessarily something for everyone.
Sure.
Is it like a mandatory training, or is it, how is the uptake decided who's going to do it, who's not? Is it a service, like the whole service is going to do it, or is it sort of who decides?
Yeah, we use the word target here, but we will target services. Okay, and we will look, working with Sarah and her team, we will look at the services where the demands and the pressures on the staff are greater because of the behaviours and the challenges by the people they support in those services. And those are the services we wanted to target first. So with that in mind, what we then did was provide a briefing for the staff, for them to get an understanding as to what mindfulness is and what mindfulness isn't. And then it would be, and this is going to be made available for you for the next 6 weeks commencing from, and individuals would then sign up for it, with the option of opting out, even during the programme, if they're sitting there thinking, this just isn't for me. And that's a really important part of the mindfulness programme anyway.
Just adding to that, David, Kim actually, what's come out of her recent kind of assessment is that she does some breathing exercises and stuff herself and self-manages a little bit like that, but it's always kind of prompted by staff. So what we're talking to her and her parents and her staff about is for her and her staff to go on a mindfulness programme together so that they can help her and she can understand them and things like that. And there's been a few people that have I've kind of thought, actually as a behaviour intervention, mindfulness could be quite good, but there's not a lot of research out there about it.
Yeah, Steve Moon sounds really great, accessible mindfulness training for people.
Yeah.
Also, just one other, sorry, just did you, I mean, as well as sort of looking at the impact of the training, mindfulness training on the people that receive the training, did you, are you taking any data around sort of, or any quantitative data around the impact on the mindfulness training sort of in terms of occurrence of changing behaviour,
That's our sort of our next level of looking at data. So we're going to go back to look at the services where Mindful was introduced 9 months ago, and then look at if there's any correlation to seeing a reduction in accidents and incidents of behaviour, but as well as whether we're seeing a reduction in sickness and absenteeism from the staff. Because if one of the payoffs is the reduction in stress, so therefore their well-being has improved, and we want to introduce those measures as well now. Thank you.
And have you noticed that the sickness rate's lower?
We haven't done that yet.
Sorry.
No, that we will be. and certainly, I'm going back to referring to the funding now, an expectation of the report, the final report that we need to put together as a result of receiving the funding, will have to have that data in it.
Yeah.
And that's the one that's going to be published?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah.